Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with Halsey Filbin. And Halsey is the operations officer at UseFuse, an app that helps independent contractors track their work and build out their personal resume. So in today's episode, Halsey and I are going to talk about and discuss how companies can tap into another great business resource by proactively hiring skilled individuals that are military veterans. So thank you, Halsey, for being on the show today. We're looking forward to the conversation.
Yep, thanks. Looking forward to being here.
Awesome. So Halsey, you are a military vet. First off, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just got out of the military about a year and a half ago, last March, actually. So yeah, I was in for 5 years in the Army.
Wow, that's amazing. So how have you been able to transition back into your civilian life? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. It's you hear about it all the time in the military, like even right when you get in, start trying to plan right now for when you're going to get out. And when you're first getting in, you don't even think about it. So I think a big thing that helped me was I went into the military when I was 26. So I did some things before the military, even if even they weren't necessarily related to what I'm doing now. But I did have that experience. I did have that experience before the military of having a civilian job, having different jobs that a lot of people don't have. A lot of these people go into the military when they're 18, even if they stay in for 4 or 5 years. When they get out, that's pretty much all they know. So it is definitely a bigger struggle for people that that didn't really have a real civilian job before going into the military. So that kind of helped me a lot before.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. You know, I don't know why. I've never thought about that. I've never realized that could add to the great challenge that some of these veterans have because they really don't know much. I mean, if they go straight out of high school into the military, I mean, they really haven't had normal life as an adult outside of military experience. So I could see where that would be a real struggle for some.
Yeah, definitely. It's when you're in the military, it's a lot of it is it's a completely different language that I could have a conversation with my military friends than somebody that's never been in the military could be sitting right next to us, and you could have an entire conversation, and that person will have no idea what you're talking about. And people that didn't really have a job before going into the military, first interview they do, first time they talk to someone, they have to not talk in acronyms. The military is all acronyms, and it is very hard to do. Like I still been out almost a year and a half. I still say these acronyms sometimes and think that people understand me, and they don't.
Interesting. And I'm sure, I mean, my brain is telling me that is because of efficiency, speed, urgency. We've got time is of the essence when you're in the military. You've got to be as efficient as possible. So I think those acronyms are probably a tool that have to be used, but I don't know. Is there something else to it besides that?
I'd say that is probably a lot of it. And like you said, you just kind of want to get your point across as quick as possible using the least amount of explanation. So when they hear one acronym, it's kind of like, all right, I know exactly what they're talking about. But yeah, I think that is a lot of it is just trying to be as efficient as possible, trying to get your point across as easily as you can.
Let's talk about maybe some of the stumbling blocks or challenges that you had, even though you had some prior experience in the private sector before your military experience. What are some of the stumbling blocks that you encountered that you think could be more avoidable with better support?
First, I would say there are, if there are tons of services out there that help you get that help in the transition. Like the military has gotten way better in the last few years with that. But I'd say the biggest stumbling blocks are knowing that if you know you're getting out within the next year, start planning it ahead of time. Um, I know a lot of people that get out first, they want to completely leave that area. So um, you're dealing with a whole career change. You might be moving halfway across the country, so you have to buy a house in that area. So like that is a huge thing. So you have to control the things that you can control. If you're because with the military, you might not be going exactly on your timeline, and that's something you learn. Obviously, you learn throughout your time in the military. Um, so control the things you can. If you're getting out, try to make sure you have uh, you're set up with a house in that area that you're going to be living in, um, and just know uh, everyone that's in the military, you have to know when to expect the unexpected. You might be thinking you're going to be in for 2 more months, but it ends up being 5 months. So just kind of keeping calm when things aren't going exactly going to go your way. Um, I guess some other stumbling blocks are, like we were saying in the past episode, documenting everything. So people don't document stuff that they're in the military. So um, you might have an injury that you had thought wasn't a big deal when you were 18, but it's giving you problems now when you're older. Um, so a big thing is that they didn't get it checked out. So now you're having, on top of all the paperwork that you're having to do getting out of the military, uh, they're not do now they have to do all your medical paperwork. So I would just say a big thing is uh, knowing what you have to do, making a list and kind of just going down that one at a time. Because you have about 6 months. Um, that they want you to plan for to get out. So just kind of going one by one and making sure you get through that list there.
Yeah, so essentially they have a 6 month transition plan to help you get to that civilian life. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, so that's what they want you to. The military wants you to start that transition at least 6 months out.
Okay. Okay.
Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't always work. It could be an injury that you got from the military, and it might be you're getting out in 2 months, and which is common, and that just makes it even harder. But um, yeah, I said there are a bunch of there's some if you take advantage of it, there are a bunch of great resources out there for veterans.
That's great. So a lot of our listeners are in construction, or they're entrepreneurs, they're business owners, they're people that hire employees, that are recruiting employees. How can those listeners better attract and recruit veterans to come and help work for their companies and fill some of the labor gap that we're experiencing in our industry?
Yeah, definitely. It's actually quite the coincidence today. The July 25th is actually National Hire of Veterans Day. So good timing for this podcast. Um, but yeah, for this in the military, you learn tons of different skills, even outside what your normal job is supposed to be. Whether I mean, in the military, you have to uh, no matter what your job is, you're always going to be asked to do something different. So you'll always learn a bunch of new skills, and a lot of those can translate directly to being like in the construction field. So there's great organizations out there, kind of like there's so it's called helmets to hard hats. There's one organization kind of lets you get into some training. When you're getting out, they help with your training to get certain licenses that you might need.
That's great. I hadn't heard of that, helmets to hard hats. That's cool. I'll have to research and check into that a little bit more. That sounds pretty fascinating. Are there other considerations that contractors need to take when trying to hire vets? Things that they should be aware of?
Um, I think the biggest thing is like we just talked about with the transition. It is a big transition from military to civilian. So kind of giving them a little bit of time. Like they might not know exactly what they're supposed to be doing all the time with some certain jobs, because they do have a bunch of skills that might not translate directly to a civilian job, but they have tons of skills that a lot of civilian people might not uh, learn as well. Just multitask, like just great under pressure, multitasking, stuff like that. Um, but I think the biggest thing, kind of consideration, is that like they might not be exact 100% ready to do some certain skill, but it is a thing that they might have the base knowledge of it and can learn it fast.
Yeah, I would imagine that these veterans are used to a great amount of structure. So aside from structure, are there any other things that you think are helpful for veterans to adapt and adjust back to civilian life? Anything else that could be provided?
Definitely, it is kind of it is kind of weird with the military. There's tons of structure, but then they also you also have to kind of figure stuff out on your own in the military. Like they'll give you the end goal, and it's kind of up to your command, your platoon leader, and stuff like that to kind of uh, not figure it out on your own, but come up with the best solution based on what you have. So I think uh, with the structure, yeah, it's very important for structure. I think a big thing is that I mean, there's tons of veterans out there. Um, some people don't broadcast that they're veterans, but I'd say in most organizations there is going to be another veteran, somebody that has gone through a similar transition as you have. So just to kind of have just to have that network available to be able to get advice from somebody else that you're close with definitely helps.
Yeah, that's a great point. So that's something I'm thinking. I know in our business here we have a few veterans, and you know maybe that would pay for me as a business owner to ask them what are some other things that get that feedback firsthand, like you're saying, and not only vet to vet uh, networking and discussion around this, but also just as a manager or a business owner, maybe checking with them and seeing. But I think you mentioned helmets to hard hats. That's something I'm interested in checking into. Are there any other organizations out there that work with individuals that are looking to transition like this?
Yeah, there's tons of organizations. I'm sure uh, heard of USO, and they're a big one. That they have tons of things that help the veterans. We've actually partnered last few months with a group called Hire Heroes. They're a great organization um, that helps people, whether it be getting everything they need to go back to school to get more education, whether it be getting certain licenses for construction. They help you in that training. Then they also help you with, like what we were talking about earlier, a big issue is with interview prep, kind of helping veterans kind of transition from military talk to civilian talk in that interview prep. Um, yeah, and there's just lots of organizations like that to help the veterans too.
Yeah, that's so. Like you were saying earlier about you speaking in acronyms, helping them to adjust some of those things so they have a better interview. Sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. And even like some people in the military, even when I was getting out, I was an officer, I was a captain. And like when I was looking through my military resume, I didn't really know how to translate that to like civilian. So like I was just trying to think, I mean, what I was really good at, and it turns into pretty much, pretty much as an officer, a lot of what you do is project management. So I mean, I had 50 people that I was kind of um, not I don't know what the word not overseeing, but 50 people in charge of everywhere from their health and wellness to putting them in the best position to finish that job. And I think a big part of transition is like um, I think a big part of the transition is being able to put that into like I didn't just go from one job to the other in the military. I kind of helped manage 50 people, into completing certain jobs, and I mean that's a huge accomplishment that looks really good on a resume if you know how to put that into those right words. Like one of the things with the military is I was able to get a PMP, a project management professional, from my experience in the military, and then because you need, I think it's something like 7,500 hours of actual experience managing certain projects, and then it's like a 4 month course after. So I mean, uh, in the military, you don't think about. When I was filling out the information, I was like, oh, yeah, "There's no way that I have 7,500 hours of managing projects." But then you look back on it, and that's pretty much what I was doing the entire time in the military, almost like a foreman for a construction job. It's kind of so if you're able to put that into the right wording on a resume, it does look really good for, and not that it just looks really good. It is actual experience that can help you in a construction field.
Well, and I think there is a reverence and a respect for veterans. I think people do appreciate their service, and so if I, as a business owner, saw that on somebody's resume, and I'm thinking military and high pressure and multitasking, like you were saying, and really problem solving 24/7, 365. I mean, that is the essence of what a project manager is supposed to do, is remove barriers and keep people moving efficiently, and help people with whatever they need to be successful. So yeah, I love that you worded it that way. So I guess for the vets listening, sounds like that's one takeaway: to be more hireable is to try and translate that experience in the military into whatever role or whatever skill set would be helpful in the role that they're applying for. Are there other things that you would recommend that they could do to be more hireable?
Definitely. And then just as like an aside, veteran unemployment rate is actually much lower than the average national rate, and I think a lot of that has to do with uh, all these great organizations. Um, but I guess so for um, I guess what you say, other considerations to be more hireable.
Yeah, yeah. What are some other thoughts aside from wording things, better on their resume, or maybe their job application, or their LinkedIn profile, or wherever they're publishing their experience? What are some other pointers that you could give to those vets that are looking to fill a position?
Yeah, definitely. So I think when you get out of the military, kind of the big thing is to definitely keep your options open. Like, I know maybe you are an intel specialist, or like myself, I was a combat engineer. Um, some of these jobs don't. There's not the perfect match for that in the civilian world. So I think a big thing that when you're transitioning out is you have to keep your options open, and I know you need to kind of what field and industry you want to go into, but you don't have to do exactly what you did in the military. Um, and if I think a big thing is one is to be confident in what you did in the military, but also know uh, even if you might have 10 years of experience, but it is different in the civilian world. So you hate to say it, but you might have to go down a little bit lower, knowing that to kind of get that experience at that job, and then you'll be able to kind of get promoted, move up from there, uh, based on what you learned from that job currently, and then move up a little quicker because of all the experience you had in the military.
Yeah, those are great points. So, do you know any firsthand experiences or things that you could relate or share with the audience, where maybe somebody was hired or was able to find success in filling that position by doing some of these things?
Almost everyone that I was in the military with is still in. I was in for about 5 years, but um, you hear about people getting out all the time that maybe that first job wasn't what they were looking for, but then either they stay with it, or they figure out what they want to do right after that.
One thing I think that's interesting, and I think maybe is a good takeaway, it's okay if that first job isn't exactly what they want. Maybe, like you said, maybe it takes something like that to spur them on in a direction that they really are more comfortable or really do want to be involved with. So, maybe give themselves a little grace to figure that out during that transition period, and not get too worried that they now they can't do anything, right? Because they're not in the military.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Um, and that's what you hear military people. Their first job, a lot of times isn't the best. Sometimes you might get really lucky, and that's great. But if not, just I think the biggest thing is you found one job that you didn't like, so you're one step closer to finding that job that you do like. Um, and whether that be going back to school, starting your own business, um, I there are, I mean, everything that you don't. Anytime something doesn't work out, it's always going to. It's just one step closer to finding that thing that is going to work out for you.
Yeah, I love that. It's you're failing forward, so to speak, or
Yep. Yep.
you're yeah, you're raising above the challenge to find that new opportunity, right? You mentioned something earlier about these military um, veterans that have a lower unemployment rate than the national average of a regular civilian. So that's a good thing. We're doing a good job at hiring vets. Another thing, though, is what about the spouses? What about their employment? I know that that's got to be challenging with veterans having to be on call, or maybe they get deployed unexpectedly. That's got to be really tough raising a family, having a husband or wife left at home to try and balance childcare and whatever else is going on, hold the fort down at the house. So, what can you share about that, and what can we be more aware of as civilians?
Yep. Yeah. So, like I said, there's tons of organization for veterans, and they're getting a lot better. Uh, these organizations for giving these same benefits to military spouses, but the military spouse unemployment rate has been as high before as 25%. So I think it's almost four times the national average. So it is a big issue with military spouses finding work, and it's a huge issue because, like you were saying, you might find out that you're getting going to the field tomorrow for 3 weeks. So it's almost impossible for them to hold down that 9 to 5 traditional job. But I think a big thing that is getting better, especially one of the benefits that'll come out of COVID, is that workplaces are more flexible with their hours. Don't You're not required to go into an office or required to go in all the time. So that is going to be a big help with military spouses. They might be able to work 6 to 8 in the morning and then 7 to 10 at night. But so they are getting it is getting better because they're more flexible. They have more options for their work as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. So they're helping identify opportunities for some of them to work off hours or a different shift or schedule than a typical employee.
Yeah, definitely. And then with that, they might be working a couple of part-time jobs, but uh, they might have these multiple part-time jobs that equate to a full-time job, just working around their own schedule, doing don't want to say odd jobs, but doing kind of things that fit into their schedule and kind of equating that to what equals a full-time job.
Yeah, so this has been a very eye-opening discussion. I've really enjoyed learning some things that I wasn't aware of, and I hope that the listeners are able to be more aware of maybe opportunities to hire veterans, and then maybe some of the challenges that they could encounter and things that they can do to help provide additional support. Because ultimately, we know in construction, especially, there's a labor shortage. I mean, in general, there's a labor shortage for a lot of companies that need more help. Like you mentioned, people are working different shifts and schedules. Maybe they're not getting as many production hours out of their overall employee base as they have in the past. So So we need to be more creative as it is to find more labor and more help. And I think hiring veterans is a fantastic way to not only support those that have done so much and sacrificed so much for us, but also they're a great resource and they're a great talent. And we need to tap into that and give them an opportunity to help not only our companies grow, but also to help them grow as an individual and transition back to civilian life. So, Halsey, what is the one thing that you would hope that our listeners would take away from our conversation today?
I'd say the big thing is, whether you're a veteran or you're looking at hiring different veterans, is to, or even like we were just talking about military spouses, is uh, you have to be flexible as both if you are a veteran military spouse and if you're a company looking to hire them, to be flexible, to keep an open mind that maybe they're not coming into the job knowing 100% what they're supposed to do, but I'm sure they have a ton of soft skills that they'll be able to leverage uh, that you can't really that's very hard to teach people. So they have there's a bunch of soft skills that they know and can benefit from, and be able to learn the hard skills quickly over time.
That's fantastic. Well, this has been very, very eye-opening, and again, very thankful for the conversation. Let's just wrap up with a couple more personal questions. So, Halsey, what's something that you have grown to become grateful for in your life?
I would say the biggest thing is what I was talking about earlier. I've worked tons of different jobs. I had the opportunity right after high school. I went to college, just kind of learning from that, and then after college, I didn't go straight into the military. I actually lived out in Utah. I was a ski bum, kind of ski instructor. Uh, so I think the biggest thing I'm grateful for is I've met people from all over. Uh, I was in my friend's wedding for somebody. He lives down in Mobile, Alabama, kind of like a fisherman down there. And I know people that we're working with people now that have multiple PhDs from Harvard. So just kind of getting that different perspective of you can learn something from everyone. And I think that's what I'm most grateful that I've had the opportunity to meet people from completely different walks of life.
I love that. That's awesome. So, what about your superpower? If you've got one skill or something that you've really been able to count on, what would that be?
I'd say mine is keeping a level head. I try not to get too excited. Try not to, when something good is happening, I try not to get too down when something bad is happening. From business, I'm sure some people my brother might say, get a little annoyed from that because I don't get too excited when he comes to me with what he thinks is huge news. Because unfortunately, we've seen stuff fall through like that. So you never want to you always want to make sure that, yeah, it's great that it happens, but something might happen also. And then on the flip side of that, something terrible might happen, but hopefully it's going to come back around on the other side. And but I'd say that's my big thing is trying to keep a level head, not get too excited, not get too down.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, it's been a lot of fun getting to know you, and I appreciate what I've learned from you today. I have certainly gained some new understanding and perspective that I'm appreciative of, and I hope the listeners feel the same. I'm sure they will. So thanks again, and I appreciate you joining us today. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I had a great time.
All right. Take care, Halsey. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.